I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen. Don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, just like the other woman on this Friday show. You're going to love this woman, so hang out and listen to her story because it's pretty fascinating. Yeah, everything reminds me of a song, and this woman reminded me of that song from the hit movie The Graduate, because she's one of those hot grandmas. I'm just going to come right on out and say it. Smoking hot grandmother. Think you're trying to seduce me, Mrs. Robinson. And I'm sure she remembers that movie. Everyone, well, she's probably close to my age. I don't know how old she is, but we're going to find out. But this woman came, she came to my attention because I saw her carrying a kettlebell up and down an escalator. Turns out, I thought she was going up an escalator backwards. Turns out I had seen it wrong. She was going up and down stairs, carrying a kettlebell and doing kettlebell lifts. And I'm like, wow, look at this woman. Look what she's doing. And people kept saying, hey, when are you going to get this woman on the show? And it's like, I don't know, whenever she wants to come on. That's when I'll get her, because I'm fascinated. Folks, I'm talking about none other than, well, she's known on Twitter as Mimi K. Morgan. Folks, I'm talking about Mimi Morgan. How you doing, Mimi?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Mimi, a lot of people look around and go, because they do it to me. They go, oh yeah, you're older and you're really fit, because all you do is work out all day long. You wake up and you work out until you fall asleep at night, and then you wake up. And I'm here to tell you, I don't do that. Number one. And number two, as I tell everyone, exercise is a poor way to lose weight, right?
Right.
Exercise will help you lose weight if you have a good diet, but it's a poor way to lose weight. You take this to another level, because you weren't exercising to lose weight. From what I can tell, it seems like you were exercising to get your life back. Why don't you start with your story and where it began with illness and everything else you had going on?
Okay. So it started about 9 years ago. And it was a culmination, but I attribute it to a bad fall. I broke my wrist, and it set my body off in a spiral, just spiral downhill. And one thing led to another. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. 2 years after that, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and additionally was a multiple system atrophy suspect, which means my autonomic system was failing early on, and they just watched that. And that happened, and I was really struggling. I've always been really active, and I'm having a pretty hard time just even getting by with life. Ended up retiring. I had to retire early, and ended up, actually one day I had walked 4 miles. Exercise is really important for Parkinson's, so I did try to keep up with that. And was sitting on a bench one day in February in 2019, and I had a stroke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so how old were you 8 years ago when things started to fail?
Started to get bad. So I just turned 69 years old, so I was about 61, 62. It was actually in December when this all, so 62 years old.
So
I was.
You were about the age I am now. And
yes.
Things started to go wrong. What type of work did you do?
Well, I was a dinnerware designer, and I also license my designs and manage a French shop downtown in Charleston. Furniture, home furnishings, soft goods, an old company, a couple 100-year-old company.
Good. Yeah, I know those type of stores. I love walking into those stores.
Yeah.
They're always great.
Yeah.
So there you are, 61, prime of your life. Things start failing. Did you know you had Parkinson's at that time, or when did the Parkinson's?
I was, Parkinson's was, so let's see, 6 years back. So about 63. So 2 years after I was diagnosed with RA, the Parkinson's, and just a number of things were going wrong led to it, and went to 3 of the top Parkinson's center. They all agreed that I had Parkinson's, and started, and I had I had way more symptoms than you typically have early on. So then I was on a lot of medications, which just even complicated and made things worse. And the gold standard is levodopa. It's the same one that they've had for 50 years, and it just masks symptoms.
Yeah, I just had a very close friend of mine who passed away, and hers was aggressive. She was 75, 76.
Wow.
Very aggressive. But she made it 12, 15 years or something from the time she was diagnosed. But with her, she never changed her diet. She never did it, because, the doctor said the only thing I could do is take this drug. And I would say, look, I'm not saying what I talk about will help. I don't know that it's going to help, but I know other people with other autoimmune diseases who are, people with, all sorts of problems. And they've been able to literally get rid of all symptoms. People with Crohn's and diverticulitis and all these other things that you hear about, right?
Right.
And she was like, no, the doctor said I can just go on and live life. And she still drank alcohol, and she wasn't a heavy drinker, but she loved sweets and, that kind of thing, bagels every morning, that kind of thing. And she wasn't willing to change any of it because she said, look, they told me it would never make any difference.
Right.
And it became another one of those struggles I have with people I love, where it's, Vinnie, look, you don't know more than the doctors. And it's like, I may not, but why not try this? Right? When I'm seeing people really, really control problems by doing this sort of thing. So you find out first you have RA, rheumatoid arthritis.
Right.
Parkinson sets in a couple of years later. You're a very fit woman right now, and I've seen pictures of you in your gym clothes. You're very, very fit.
Yeah.
Were you like that beforehand, or was this a brand new thing for you?
No, I've always been active and basically fit. The problem was that, I was fat starved for a good part of my life, and it caught up with me. So I've always been a good, healthy eater. I had that on my side. When I had Parkinson's, they said the same thing. They told me diet isn't going to help. And by the way, no fat and protein, you need to limit to a little bit at night because it's going to compete with the medication and the blood-brain barrier. So now I'm even having a higher carbohydrate diet than I did before. So now that's compounding the problem because now I'm getting about 4 ounces of protein and very little fat in a day, which now I'm getting sicker.
Yeah. And
so I'm at this point, I'm frail, weak. I wasn't lifting weights, but for a week, I'm not getting nourishment. The medicine made me really sick, and which it can do. And I'm taking it every 3.5 hours, 4 hours to combat symptoms from the moment I woke up. Actually, I'd lie in bed, take it, and lie in bed for half an hour before I even tried to step out. And I was so nauseous from it that I ate more graham crackers, more bananas, and more saltines. That was basically my diet for close to a year while they adjusted. I just couldn't keep any other food down. So you can just imagine what kind of state I'm in after a year of that, dealing with 2 illnesses and then the complications from the illnesses. So I was not, and I was plant-based. So I was basically plant-based. So I was just not in a good place when I had the stroke.
So let's talk about the stroke. So now we're starting to compound problems.
Right.
Just to keep the audience we have rheumatoid arthritis. We mutate right into Parkinson's, and then a stroke.
Right.
How long? What year was that?
That was 2019, and I came out pretty well. It was a medium-sized stroke. I was lucky. I actually was sitting on the bench by myself, and there were 2 runners that I was able to catch. And I knew I was having a stroke after they tried to walk me back to my place. I knew then that I was having one. And I came out pretty well. I actually was let out after 3 days and was told, you can go on with your life. You need to take a statin, but go on with your life. And within 24 hours, I was rushed back to the hospital. The IV was infected with MRSA.
Oh, so now you're dealing with MRSA, which now life can end right here, right?
Yes, right.
How long are you in the hospital dealing with MRSA?
So I was in for 11 days that time. It took 5 days before the antibiotics weren't working, and it took about 5 days before the cultures were negative. And that's because they put me on another antibiotic. And I kept complaining about my back at that time. And actually, the first 3 days I was out of it. I don't even remember anything. So I got let me home at 11 days. Unbeknownst to me, the antibiotic that was killing the bacteria, they took me off of it and sent me home with a PICC line, which is a line from your arm into your chest, so I could walk around with antibiotics 24 hours a day. They sent me home, taking me off of the antibiotic that was actually helping me and kept me on the other one. And I ended back up in the hospital 2 weeks after. Now they're saying, well, it's not only in my blood, it's spread to my spine, it's in my spinal canal, I have osteomyelitis fasciitis, which means the bacteria has eaten my vertebrae. It was in my psoas muscle, and at this point, they're not even sure if I'm going to live. And so now it's gone from bad to really bad.
What's your mental state like at this point? I mean, I'm listening to this and getting depressed.
Yeah.
It's like, what else can happen to this woman? It's like you're, war torn at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, aren't you sitting there going, where's the gun? I just want to have a gun sandwich. I mean,
yeah. I did at one point when they tried to move me, I begged them. If they had offered me, the pain is actually the most excruciating pain I've ever endured. And if they offered me a gun, I would have taken one. I was too sick to be depressed. I just was that ill on that week. And I don't know how to explain it. I was too sick to even feel sorry for myself at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're dealing with now husband, kids, what's going on?
I have kids, no husband. I'm single. I have kids. I have a daughter and son-in-law. And actually my son-in-law saved my life. They tried to, I'm one of these people. I am can be on death's door, and I have the best lab work in the world. And they tried to send me home the third time in emergency. And I was really in agony at this point. And my son-in-law says, no, she keeps complaining with her back. You need to do an MRI. And they said, I'm sorry, we're not going to do one. We need the bed for somebody sick. He said, I know my mother-in-law, and I can tell she's in a lot of pain. And they threatened security, and he refused to move. And they came back about 3 hours later with their tail between their legs, saying she's not going anywhere. And we're not even sure she's going to make it. So they were there every day. I ended up being in the hospital first time February 7th. I didn't get out because actually things even got worse. And from at that point, the surgery I came through fine. And it was really surgical debridement where all they can do is hose you down, because they said I was not going to make it through the next couple of days if they didn't do that. And I didn't get out I was in rehab for 3 weeks. I didn't get out until like the 24th of April. So I was in there a long time.
I had to pull something like that with the hospital once, where they wanted to kick me out. And I said, okay, but here's the deal. I have a friend. I was still living in Los Angeles. I have a friend over at Channel 7 News. I'm calling her right now. You guys can listen to the call. I'm going to put it on speaker. And I called her and I said, hey, can you get a camera crew down here to X hospital? And I'll be coming out of this door, and I will be explaining that they're kicking a sick man out of the hospital. And she goes, no problems. I have a lot of high pollutant friends in LA.
Yeah, you must.
No problem. we're mobilizing right now. And then I got on the phone and called my attorney and said, Scott, I need to have you meet me at this hospital at such and such a time. I'm coming out of the front door and you need to speak for me. And lo and behold, that nurse who heard the message, heard it out loud, went to the head nurse who said, we just figured out that we have a bed for you. A bed just came available. And I said, great, where is that bed? She goes, you can stay right in the one you have, right here. But if you don't have someone like me who's going to advocate for myself, or your son-in-law who, wait a minute, you would be dead right now.
I would.
Right?
And I didn't have the fight in me. And I was lucky that he just wasn't going to take no for an answer. Yeah. And they really were threatening security on him. I mean, there was a big, and I'm lying there in emergency sick, but yeah, they were going to send me home.
Yeah, same here. Same here. And they said, we're going to send you home and see how you, it's like, no, I'm not in the hospital because I think I'm kind of sick. I don't like hospitals. I don't come to hospitals.
Right.
We're not going to take a let's-see approach. And by the way, I had a real problem. Not as dire as yours, but I had a real problem, and there was no reason for me to leave that hospital.
Right.
Folks, I'm saying this, and I'm hoping you're hearing Mimi on the other mic here. You got to advocate for yourself sometimes. I always tell people the reason you want to stay healthy is because the last place you want to be is a hospital. But boy, if you end up in one, you need to advocate for yourself. Hospitals are businesses. Understand what I'm saying? A hospital is a business. A business wants to be at 100% capacity. That means they want 100% of the beds full at all times. And they want the best paying customers in those beds. End of story.
Yeah. That's
what hospitals are. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a business proposition. They looked at Mimi and went, we can't drop any more drugs in this woman. Get her out of here. Get someone back. Get someone here we could get more money out of. This one's burst. Bring me another one. That's basically what they were doing to you, Mimi.
I know. It really was horrible.
And good luck trying to sue them because that's not going to work. So at some point, you start healing up because you're still here.
I am.
What happened next?
So I did rehab, came home, had home health care for a while, came home in a walker. I had physical therapy 3 times a week, and I'm on 13 plus medications, and I did very poorly. And I get at this point now, after 13, 15 months, they said, well, how you are is it. And how I was is I had to sit to wash my hair and shower. Took me forever to roll over. I was still in pain. I could barely walk 2 blocks. And I couldn't do a whole lot for myself. And I really was getting worse. And my family at this point is thinking we're going to have to look for a home for you in a couple years. And literally the first thought that came in my mind when they said that is I'm not going to make it to a home in a few years. I'm going to be gone before then. And I walked to this mailbox that I paid no attention to and got a little bit further, sometimes as much as a quarter mile, but then it would set me back 4 days. And I walked to it and I turned around in defeat. As I'm turning around, the only way I can describe it is a question popped in my mind. To me, it's divine. And that is, okay, so you can't walk to where you want to walk. What do you have? What can you do? And I stopped for a second. My answer was, I have 10 steps in me. And I turned around and I walked those 10 steps and I walked home without thinking about it. And I did the same thing. The next day I get to the place where I was with 10 steps further. And I'd ask myself that same question. And I really wasn't paying much attention to it, but I just did that every day. And then I realized I've got at this point now, I've got some extra weight on me. I'm still on the high carb diet. I'm not moving. And I thought I've got to get some weight off. And so I went to somebody across the street thinking, well, I'm on 13 plus medications. What's another one? So maybe I'll get a diet pill and get some weight off.
So wait, hang on. How tall are you and how much do you think you weigh at that time? Or do you?
Oh gosh, I do. So I was over 150 and I'm 5'3".
Okay.
So I've got
fairly
extra
short,
weight on my back.
you got weight that's on a bad.
Yeah.
And by the way, go on.
And I lost 1.5 inches when my spine self-fused. And
right.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're a woman of 5'3" stature most of your life before you lost that.
Right.
And you're over 150 pounds, which is heavy for someone that height. And
with a back like mine, it was really heavy.
Yeah. Okay. So do you get the diet pill? What happens there?
Oh no. So I go across the street and I, bring my medication. He's an hour talking to him. He spent 2 hours with me. Great guy. Go over my medication, go over everything. And he looks at me. He said, "Are you willing to trust me?" And I'm looking, sure. What do you have? And he says, "You need to be on a high fat diet, 50%, 25% protein, carbs." I said, "Are you nuts? I'm trying to lose weight. And I can't do that with the Parkinson's medicine." And he said, "Well, that's what you need to do. Will you trust me?" And at this point, I just thought, well, what do I have to lose? So I said yes. And that's when I proceeded on a low carb diet, 50% fat, protein. And I started to feel a little better. I visited every week. He also convinced me, we're going to get you well and we're not going to worry. Because I'd come and I'd say, okay, so 2 pounds off, that's great. I'd like more. He said, we're going to get you well.
So, all right.
Losing weight's the bonus.
Okay. He sounds like me. I talk about that in my book. I always say, I'm into making people healthy. The only reason they want to do it is because they're going to lose weight, right? I don't care. That's the aside. That's their motivation. My motivation is to get people healthy. Yeah. Their motivation is I want to look good in a bikini. So, right. Is this an MD? Who is this person you ran into?
He's a chiropractor and he has a health clinic. He's actually right across the street from me now. He's a chiropractor. He was really sick before, and this is how he healed. And he shared some of that with me. So I was willing to connect. We just hit it off. And I was just at this point, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I mean, they kept piling medications on me for, this ailment and that's creeping in. And I didn't want to feel sick anymore. So I just said, sure.
Yeah. One of the things, you don't know much about me, Mimi, but I had a 40-year career training people, 31 of those in Hollywood, working with actors and actresses. And I used to tell people the only reason they listened to me was because they had an agent or a studio who said, you need to listen to this guy, because no one in their right mind in 1992 wanted to listen to a guy that said, no, we're going high fat. We're going fat. Nobody wanted to believe that. And as a matter of fact, I had a bunch of them say to me, well, I'll just go along with this until the movie's over with, because if I keep eating all this bacon and eggs, I'm going to drop dead of a heart attack. That I was dealing with that, because if you remember, every sitcom was, they're at a steak restaurant. It's like, yeah, I'll have the extra large sirloin with a side of cardiologist. Some weird. Yeah. That was always the thing there, right? And so I was really fighting tooth and nail to get these people to eat this way, and they would only do it when they had to. Some of them continued on. So I can only imagine you're walking in. You're in not the deep South. You're in the middle South, where ladies never eat too much, and and all this. Right. Now someone's telling you 50% of your calories need to come from fat, right? Yeah. So how long does it take before you start feeling better? Just physically feeling better?
Probably about 6 months. And the funny thing is at this point, at about 6 months, and I'm still learning the macros because I don't know what it is, deep protein and fat. I found myself getting up to 70, 80% fat. And that's when I noticed the neuro symptoms going. So it really was beyond. I said to him, I'm noticing this. He said, just go for it. And it wasn't until I even went higher fat
And
did I really have.
Let me ask you, where were you getting your fat calories from? Where were you eating?
So from a lot beef. So I brought a lot of beef back in. At this point, I may be having a chicken once every 2 weeks, salmon, avocado, just eggs, just food from natural food.
Any coconut?
Good olive. A little MCT oil. I would have a little bit if I couldn't make my fat quota, if I was short. But
Okay.
And butter, local butter from a dairy, and I was just getting my fat the natural way, and that's really when I noticed the real big change in me.
Are you familiar with my good friend Mary Newport?
No, I haven't heard of her. No.
Oh, you need to read her book, because you'll take more MCT oil and more coconut oil into your diet than you're taking now.
Okay.
Her husband was diagnosed with autoimmune disease, but it wasn't Parkinson's. It was Alzheimer's or one of those, one of the neurodegenerative disease, same sort of thing. And when she put him, she's been on my show probably 3 or 4 times. She's actually in my 4th documentary that's coming out early next year. Mary, is an MD and just started giving her husband coconut oil, and his cognitive decline shifted almost overnight.
Oh.
From the medium chain triglycerides, from the coconut oil. And she would give him as much of that as he could take every day, 3 or 4 times a day, and even mix in a little MCT oil. Now, MCT oil and coconut oil, very similar, because they usually take MCT oil from coconut oil, right? It's the easiest way to get it. It's basically refined coconut oil. The problem is, as you may have learned along the way, if you have just a little too much, you better be near a bathroom.
Okay.
Because you can crap your pants out. Not so much with coconut oil, where you would have to really overdo it with coconut oil to get there. But yeah, you should look into that because of
I will.
All right, so now you're up to 70% fat. What's the rest of your macros? Are you still at 25% protein?
Yes, and now I've got my carbs down to less than 20 grams. I've removed nightshades, of course, which one of the first things to go because of RA. I've lectins, oxalates. I mean, I'm stripped down basically to homemade kimchi, which I make.
Good.
So very, very, very little.
Before we go to this quick commercial break, everyone's going to want to know. They don't care about anything else about Mimi. They're going to know what you weigh now. So you were over 150.
Right.
Where are you now?
Well, I put on some muscle weight. I'm around 118.
Yeah, you're very muscular, which also speaks to something else I always talk about. You and me, people our age, it turns out a lot of people, mostly women, follow this podcast that are our age. And we talk a lot about sarcopenia, but you're not, we're never going to reverse sarcopenia. It's not going to happen, but we can retard the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've retarded your sarcopenia, put on some muscle.
Yes.
And lowered your fat, and you're at 118. That's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah. Hang on just a second, folks. Villa Capelli olive oil. Mimi was getting ready to talk about olive oil a second ago. We're going to ask her about that in just a minute, but Villa Capelli olive oil. Here's the thing. In the great United States of America, we're able to cut olive oil up to 40%, put a bunch of seed oil in it, and call it pure olive oil. Now, that's bad enough, putting seed oil, or as I like to call it, sewing machine oil, in your olive oil. That's bad enough. But it's worse, because when you start dropping seed oils into olive oil, the color is going to go away. So now they got to add a color to make it look like olive oil. And if that's not bad enough, It doesn't smell like olive oil anymore. So they got to add another chemical to make it smell like olive oil. By the time you're drinking or putting this Franken oil in your salad, is nowhere near olive oil. It's going to cause inflammation. And I'm sure if Mimi was drinking that kind of olive oil, she's going to have all kinds of conniption fits. So RA is going to flare up. Parkinson's going to get worse. You can only name it. But Villa Capelli, listen, Villa Capelli is not the only great olive oil on the planet. There are a lot of great olive oils. But guess what? This is the one that's been supporting this show from the beginning. So why not support Villa Capelli? Go to villacapelli.com, or you could go through vinnietortorich.com to get there. It's on my website. Put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, no wimpy Y, and you will save 10%. Now, I'm going to give you a little workaround that Stephen Crutchfield, the owner, probably doesn't want you to know. But here goes. If you spend more than, say, $145 at Villa Capelli, and then you get the discount of 10%, you're still above $125. You get free shipping. So free shipping and 10% off. You can't lose. I keep that stuff here. I buy 2 3-liter tins at a time. I use olive oil every day. If I'm not putting it on something green, or if I'm not putting it in food, I'm drinking it straight, 1 ounce every day, no matter what. It's one of my supplements. Villa Capelli. We use it here. You may want to use it wherever you are. We're talking to none other than Miss Kim, known as Mimi K. Morgan, over on Twitter. You want to go check this woman out on Twitter because I'm amazed at what she's doing. I'm amazed at listening to her story. It's an amazing story. And it should be something that will motivate you no matter where you are and what station you are and where, with this whole losing weight thing. Mimi, you're walking 10 steps. Next thing you know, you're talking to a chiropractor. Next thing you know, you're eating high fat. 6 months later, you notice you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Take from there.
So I started, now I'm feeling better. And then now I'm starting to, and I don't recommend this for anybody, but at this point, I'm pretty much done with the medical community. So I start fooling with my medications and start eliminating them as my symptoms improved.
Okay.
And then now I'm feeling even better because I was on 13 plus medications.
Were you taking some medications that battled the other medications you were taking? Because I
think so. Yes, I do believe so.
So, I tell people, look, people call me all the time. I do these consults 5 days a week. And people will say, look, my A1Cs have now, because of you, they've dropped to 5.1. They were at 8.9 or whatever.
Right.
Should I still be on metformin or Wegovy or whatever? And I'll say, well, I'm not going to tell you to go off. But if you're at 5.1, you need to go talk to your doctor. And there's probably a titration period. You're going to have to titrate off.
Yeah.
But go do that. And I've had other people tell me the same thing about, hey, my doctor put me on the statin. I don't even know why I was on a statin. I didn't have a heart problem. There was no calcification. I'm not telling you to go off. I'm telling you to go back to your doctor or go find a doctor that knows what the hell they're talking about.
Right.
Take you off. And then again, you might have to titrate off of that. What were you doing? What did you do for yourself?
I just did it on my own. As I noticed, I'm taking this medication for this symptom. And I'm not having that symptom, or it's getting better. I just started fooling with it and taking myself off of them because I started sleeping better. Everything was getting better, and I really had some severe issues and some complications with sleep related with the neuro. And I just started taking myself off of them. And as I'm getting better, I'm getting more fresh air and more sunshine. And I just keep going down on this path. It took a while. It doesn't happen overnight. I had a lot of things to correct. I eventually, every 6 months, I'd go see my movement disorder, which my Parkinson's physician, and I got released from the aggressive form of Parkinson's. They said, that you've hit the 5-year mark and your symptoms haven't got worse. We can just dismiss that that's part of the issue. And I have some leeway with the Parkinson's medication. All patients do. because you get on and off symptoms, and sometimes the parts of the day you need more medication than others. And I started to fool around with it as my neuro symptoms got, and eventually took myself off of all of the part. And I'm on 1,200 milligrams. That's a lot. I took myself off of all of it, and now don't have the diagnosis of Parkinson's anymore.
Okay.
Which is typical. 25% of people with Parkinson's have that taken away between 5 and 10 years. But for 6 years, I was told I had Parkinson's, and no longer.
And I'm looking at you. You don't move like a Parkinson, because, like I said,
No.
I had a good friend die from it. And I have another friend with it. It all started with, the hands quivering, and before, the head and the whole thing. Did you have trouble controlling your head and this and that and the whole thing?
No, so I don't have tremor, and actually that's there's 5 symptoms. 4 symptoms need to be diagnosed for Parkinson's. Tremor is one of the 5. I did not have a tremor. And actually my kids, I had masking, so I had lost my facial expression. I had trouble with my speech, had a typical voice tremor of Parkinson's that I did have. I couldn't swing. So I dragged my left side, couldn't swing. I actually am doing physical therapy again. My shoulder's not right, but I couldn't swing my arm. Had balance issues, cogwheel rigidity, which is another one, slowness of gait I had. So I had a number. I just didn't have what people know Parkinson's as is tremor, but not everybody has a tremor.
It's unbelievable. I mean, people are going to think we're making this up. You reversed Parkinson's. I mean,
well, I don't know if I reversed it. And I also, with Parkinson's, had nighttime dystonia. And I also had parasomnia, which is Parkinson's nightmare disturbance. So I also had severe restless leg. It wasn't just one. I had quite a few things that were tagged on with it. So I don't know if I reversed it or if I did. I definitely had something neuro that was very similar. Like I said, 3 of the top centers in the United States, my daughter took me to, all diagnosed me with. And these are people who I just didn't see for 15 minutes. Some of them I did a clinical trial for it. I spent 20 hours with a top Parkinson's doctor doing this clinical trial, and nobody questioned it. So it wasn't like I got my 15 minutes and they missed it. I had some hours with these people.
It's interesting because I wrote about this woman in my book, a close friend of mine. She was in her early 50s when I wrote my book, because the book is now 10 years old. And she, about your height, she might even be shorter than you. About 5'1", little Italian girl from Jersey, very close friend, lupus, right?
Yeah.
And medications and the whole thing. And I'm going to make her long story very short. She started doing triathlons after we got her straight on eating right. She hasn't taken a drug in years. And I'm 61, so let's say she's 64 now. So she's between my age and your age. She's still doing couple of 2 or 3 Ironman distance triathlons per year. Ironman, not half Ironmans, not quarter, full Ironmans. And every year she goes, okay, I'm retiring. I'm done with this. I'm going to move on. 64, still doing Ironman competitions. And her doctors will tell you, oh yeah, she still has lupus. And I'll go, well, when was the last time she had a symptom? I don't know, 15 years ago. 15 years ago. Yet they still, oh no, she has lupus. It's like, well, show me a symptom. How do you have something if you don't have one symptom to show for it? Well, and their thought is, once you have lupus, you have lupus, right?
Right.
Now, you may not have had Parkinson's because, but you went to 3 of the top places and they all said, hey, you're doomed to these drugs. And once you somehow miraculously got yourself off of those drugs, here we sit. I'm looking at a woman that's not shaking and not moving and does not have a symptom.
Right.
And look, part of my story is they cured me of leukemia, but they told me that the type of leukemia is a rare form They said it's going to come back. I was like, well, when's it going to come back? And they said 5 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's going to keep, it's still in your bone marrow. It's going to grow back. And but don't worry, because we can knock it back with the same drug. I have a PICC line in me also. I don't want another PICC line in me because it's pouring poison right into your chest. Right. And so my thing was, I'm going to see how long I can go. If I can go 6 years or 7 years, that's better than getting it every 4 or 5 years.
Right.
The one time I had chemo was in 2007. It's now 2023.
Right.
I haven't had any chemo. So wait, why isn't anyone looking at me going, wait a minute? This guy had 80% of his bone marrow was leukemia cells. He was almost dead. We told him he would be back every 4 or 5 years to get more chemo. And he's not had any cancer since. Now, next year when I go, they might tell me you have cancer again. But let's see, 7 from 23 gives you what, that's 16, 17 years now?
Right.
I'll take that over every 4 or 5 years of having poison dumped in me. Right. I mean, it makes no sense. The medical community can say stuff and people take it as gospel, and they don't. That's why I'm so angry about my late girlfriend. By the way, we weren't dating at the time. We dated way back when we remained friends over the years. Right. And, it makes me very angry. It makes me very upset because she didn't try, because the doctor said, no, you just take this medication and just live life normal. And you didn't choose to do that.
No, I didn't. No, once I started to feel well enough that I got enough energy, and when I had enough energy, I got a fight back in me. I didn't have that until I changed my diet. And no, actually, they told me I'd have to be on antibiotics for life. That this was going to come back. It was hiding in a biofilm, and it probably still is. I had 2 reoccurrences this year, but last year I went and said, I don't want to be on antibiotics for 3.5 years. I don't want to be on them. I want to get off. He says, we can't do that. It's going to come back and kill you. And it's going to come back in 30 days and you're going to be worse off. And I said, well, I stopped taking antibiotics 45 days ago.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what he said to me? He says, okay, well, you're alive. So let's stick with that.
It's funny how medicine works, right? They call it a practice for a reason.
Yeah.
When did you get in? When did you decide to start going up and down stairs? And when did you decide to take a kettlebell along? And what else? Because I've seen pictures of you, not to be, what do they call it? But I've seen pictures of you in your tights, and you don't look like a 9-year-old woman. You look amazing.
Well, I feel amazing. So I'm on this path. Fortunately, my father got ill and was coming home for hospice, and I went up to Connecticut for a couple months, where my family is, to help. And we brought him home, and I'm helping the aide move him. I couldn't do it. I thought, boy, am I weak. And I get home from that, and I realize, okay, I'm just skinny. I have no strength. And then on top of that, my bone density came back and said, now I'm borderline osteopenia, and they want to put me on medication. Well, I just got off of 13 plus. I said, I'm not going on medication. And I thought, I need to lift weights. So I joined the senior center, and I convinced my trainer there and begged for sessions. I took to it right away. And that was last April. And I trained with her 4 1-hour private sessions with her a week. And then I row, I hike when I go out west, I do cardio, and we work hard. We've been a slow build, and we've had a lot of workarounds, not only my back, which I tell the story about how she pulled me. She said, well, let's try a sit up. And I couldn't do a sit up. I couldn't even lift off a couple of inches. And she pulled me for the first month. She kept pulling me up. My back wasn't having it. And finally, after a couple of months, and this is my best moment of all my training, and I've done a lot, she said, okay, let's just try a sit up. And I got my first sit up.
Nice.
And I had a tear in my eye.
Look, I get that. I really get that. People
I mean,
don't realize what's important in life. You know, you go,
yeah.
you're crying over a sit-up. No, it means a lot when you can't move
Well,
an inch.
yeah. And I got my first one. And now, now I could do 100 sit-ups. Now she says, let's do squats till failure. Well, I couldn't empty the bottom of the dishwasher 2 years ago. And now I can do, she said, let's do squats to failure. And I just look at her and I do 100. She goes, I am done counting. Stop. Because I could keep going.
So the trainer failed. And you mentioned you're rowing, or are you rowing on the water or in the gym?
No, I'm rowing in the gym now, which is good because I have a torn, who doesn't my age have a torn rotator cuff, a partial, and I have a right side torn meniscus, but we work around it. We get around it. It doesn't stop me. We keep increasing the weight. So it's not, okay, you're at a good place stopping. No, we keep going. I can leg press a lot.
But wait, I want to go back to the rowing. That can be tough on your lower back, and you have some degeneration going on in those discs. Does it bother in your lower back with the
no, it isn't, because I've got a really good core and I'm really good at engaging my core. Otherwise my back will spasm and that'll tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm good with that. I like it. It's easy on my knee. It's easy on my shoulder because I can keep my arm by my side.
Yeah.
I prefer to be outside, and I have a great bridge with a hill here and I'll walk. But sometimes I just can't do that. And so rowing is something new that I've added.
I felt that people are so tired of me telling my rowing story, but during the pandemic, we were in the middle of buying a house, and we were living in another house that I owned that I bought as a rental. We moved to Virginia. We were living in Los Angeles, and the pandemic hit right after we moved here. And I was counting on the gym every day. And one day I went to the gym and it was closed. And we're closed for the pandemic. So I don't know how long this is going to go on for.
Yeah.
So I contacted Concept 2. And by the way, I was always just a rower in the gym that would use it for 10 or 15 minutes to warm up. It was a warm up, especially on leg day.
Right.
And so I was like, man, these things are only $900. Right. So I just said, hey, send me a rower. Because I worked in gyms for years. The one piece of equipment that never broke was the Concept 2, right?
Yes.
As a guy that ran gyms, everything is being fixed all the time, except the Concept 2. So that's why I got that machine. I'm talking about it as if they give me a fee for talking, but they don't.
Right. They should.
I got my rowing machine, and every day I just got on it out of boredom. Some days an hour, some days an hour and a half, some days 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because I had nothing. Everybody else was drinking and gaining weight during the pandemic. And I would just watch old Gomer Pyle episodes and stuff on MeTV that I saw as a child, almost lip syncing those programs. And I would just stay on the rower the whole time. And then one day I looked around and went, put 5 million meters. Now the pandemic's over with, but I kept using the rower. It's like, I'm over 5 million meters here, and maybe I need to learn how to row. So this past summer, I went out and learned how to row on the water. So it's you never stop doing things. That's what I'm always trying to tell people.
Yeah.
Don't get old. Stay young in your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Just stay young in your mind.
Yes.
And that's what I'm doing. It sounds like what you're doing.
I am. I'm an adventurer. I've dog sledded. I've horsebacked over the San Juan Mountains. I've kayaked across the Atlantic Passageway. I had a couple more adventures left in me, and I had given up thinking about doing those. And they're back in my head. I'm going to do them.
I want to talk about the dog sledding, if you don't. Now, folks, listen. Mimi and I are going to go all over the place now. That was the motivational section of it, but I'm so interested in this woman. I've always been fascinated with the Iditarod. Right.
Me too.
I'm not planning on doing the Iditarod, but
right.
I've always been fascinated with the Mackey family and this family.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a matter of fact, I had a friend who used to do something called the Iditasport, where they would do the same course, but I think only 350 miles, and there was a 150-mile section of it where they would do it either on a bike, snowshoes, or or skis, cross country skis. But whatever you chose at the starting line is what you had to take to the finish.
Okay.
You couldn't switch in between. Oh, wait, now the snowpack is heavier and tighter. I can now get on the bike. How did you get into sledding, and where do you do it?
So I absolutely love it. I'm fascinated with the Iditarod. I've read a slew of books on it. At one point when I was crazy enough in my 40s thinking, well, maybe I'll go do it, and I looked into it and realized that was going to happen. I went up to north of Duluth to a place that has called Winter Moon dog sledding. I absolutely love it. I really could do it every year. And I don't. I got busy with the family, but I might get back up there again. But it's not really what people think. You think you're just going to hop and go on a ride, but no, you're running beside the dog.
You got to work. You got to work that sled too, right? I mean,
oh yeah. You have to work the sled. It's hard. The dogs have a ton of energy.
Yeah.
You've got to have balance, and when it gets tough, and it gets tough pretty soon on, you're running beside them in deep snow with heavy gear on, heavy boots on, and you're running beside them because to make it easy for them, otherwise they can't pull.
Yeah, I've always thought about doing it, but just like you have to live. I think people don't realize to do the Iditarod, you have to live it. You have to be, you have to have teams and teams of dogs.
Yeah.
Probably 30, 40 dogs.
Yep.
Just to get your top 8 or whatever they use.
Right.
And, you have to live it. You have to work those dogs year round. You have to work with them. They have to know you as well as you know them. It's such, so it was never really a reality for me. It was just, it was a dream.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great if I could take 5 years and just go live in Alaska and figure this out?
Yeah.
But, it's interesting that you did that. Now, you and I have kayaking in common too. I love kayaking. I built it this past year.
Did you really?
Yeah, I built a cedar strip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
If you give me your phone number later, I'll send you a couple of photos. It's my baby.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
It took me 14 months.
Wow. Nice.
First off, what type of kayaking do you do? And tell me about
it. So I love to kayak. I have not done it. Hopefully I can do it again here. I went to the Atlantic Passageway. I'm really good with sports with the upper body or better with me. I mean, I'm not going to be good at soccer. Obviously not tall enough for basketball. But I have I rode competitively. I have a natural rhythm so kayaking was a good one. I did the Atlantic Passageway up North Vancouver Island and camped up there. And I love it. It's just a great sport. We have some places here in the low country and some marsh to do. I have not done, that's ocean kayaking out there, but I haven't done sea kayaking, but it's just a real great sport, relaxing.
It's a
nice rhythm.
It is. I started with sea kayaking because the idea, and I still haven't done it. I grew up on the longest bayou in the world down in Louisiana. And it's a little over 100 miles long. It goes from the Mississippi River in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. It goes all the way down through the marsh to Grand Isle, about 110 miles. And I've always wanted to kayak it. I wanted to canoe it, but my best buddy is now, we're the same age, but he's a bit out of shape, and there's no way he's going to want to canoe the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's when I got into kayaking, but I had to teach myself in the Pacific Ocean when I was living in LA.
Okay.
So I ended up with a surf ski, flipping over a lot out there and finally started figuring it out. So that made me a very balanced kayaker. The problem is that I don't get enough time in the boat. And I live right near the river. I have 2 beautiful kayaks now. And I just need to get out there in the river where I live and get good at it, get some practice in, and then get over to that bayou and do it. Right.
Right.
And I won't do it before it gets too hot. And you also have to do it before alligator mating season, because you don't need an alligator going, wait a minute, he's in my territory here. I need to take care of the guy.
Right. And they will. We have alligators here.
You're in North or South Carolina?
I'm in South Carolina, in Charleston.
I was in, are you familiar with Pawleys Island?
I am. I've only been there once.
I went there a few months ago for the first time and loved it. I think I'm going to make it a
Yeah.
yearly thing. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people like it. It's remote and very nature oriented.
Yeah. And I brought one of my sea kayaks and did some,
Okay.
I brought one of my surf ski, my one surf,
Okay.
and I was out there enjoying the crap
Yeah.
out of it. So
Oh, I bet.
we have so much in common. What other sports are you into?
Oh, let's see. So I was a equestrian as a child, teenager.
Yeah.
I show competitively nationally, so I love horses and did that as an adult. I'm a big hiker, so I've done a lot of hiking. The one of the things that I'd like to do that I had given up, and now I know I can do it because I climb switchbacks when I go out west in the summer, and I wanted to do the 30-day St. Francis of Assisi trail. Was something that I'd like to do to hike
That's not the
that.
one. That's not the one in Spain. That's the what's the one
I
in
think you're
Spain?
in. It's the French Way is the one I want to do, I believe.
There's another one in Spain. I can't think of the name of it right now because Marathon des Sables just keeps running through my head. But there's one, I want to say a 600 kilometers or 600 miles, and people do it over the course of several months.
Yeah, a 30-day one
Yeah.
is the one I want to do. So I forget how many kilometers that is.
I throw a hike in, every summer. It causes me to stay in hiking shape. And
Yeah.
since when we don't want to do anything, I say we because I have a hiking partner. We go up to Whitney almost every summer because
Okay.
it's the highest point in the lower 48. And we've done glaciers here and there and the whole thing, so
Fun.
we're glacier, we know our way around glaciers, Mont Blanc and that kind of thing.
Nice.
But can't get enough of it. And I'm
I
always
love hiking.
encourage people waste so much money going to Starbucks. It's like, stop going to Starbucks, save money, go do a straight in a kayak or go hike.
Yeah.
Go just don't waste your money on stupid things. Go enjoy things because it's out there. It's out there to have. It's beautiful.
Oh, it is. When I'm out in Colorado hiking, and I'm doing it at a pretty good clip. I mean, there are 80-year-olds that live out there that are just putting me to shame because this is their life.
Look,
and they just go out and do it. I mean,
Yeah.
so you can be in shape. You can do all of that in 80, 85. I mean, it's amazing how many are clearly they're that age and they are just blowing past me.
Oh, look, the oldest man ever to go rim to rim on the Grand Canyon was 92. He did that this year. I'm always telling people, look around at what people are doing. Just look around, man. Age is just a number. And I know that sounds like a weird cliche or you're such a loser. Yeah. People are doing stuff, right? And
they are.
I remember when my parents was like 60, they were acting old, right? They were old, they were retired, and they were doing right. Oh, do that, we're old. Hell, I don't. You can see there's a gym right behind me, right here in my office. Yeah. There's two bicycles set up facing the television. There's a rowing machine there. I have a paddle erg over here. I could pull that paddle erg out. It's just like a rowing machine, but it's made for paddling. Any sport I need to do, there's no excuse. I can just take time off from working at this desk, go do it, and then come right back to this desk. Right? There are ways around everything.
There is. Right? Even if you're sick. I mean, I'm an example of that. That doesn't. You're sick. You can heal, and you can live an active, full life. You can reverse things. If I can do it, pretty much anybody can, because I had a lot going against me.
Do you think that your athletic brain was what helped you walk that 10 extra steps? Because it all started with the 10 extra. Look, my daughter was equestrian. She fell off a lot in competition and in practice and everything. And no matter how banged up she was, she would climb back on, we taught her, get back on that horse.
Yes.
Get back on that horse, right? And, being an athlete, you've done everything. You know what pain feels like. You know what it feels. Do you think that encouraged that 10 steps? I'm going to take 10 more steps. Where did that come from?
I don't know where it came from, but I think for me, because I push myself, and one of the reasons I have a trainer is I don't quite know when to stop. I always think there's I'll push past the more, thinking there's more. And so I have somebody that says, okay, you've already given more and now you need to back off. But I think for me, because I kept trying, I kept trying. I got a quarter mile and then it set me back. I think it was for the first time that I really asked myself what I could do. And that's really all I had. And for me, I needed a little gentler and more tender way without berating myself because I couldn't get it, and just accepting that's all I had, and letting that be good enough, and just going with that. And I ended up getting to 2 miles in less time than I tried for the year and a half prior. I couldn't even get past a quarter mile in a year and a half, and just that, because that's really all I had. And then as I started to get more, I had more energy and felt better, but that's really all I had in me. And so I think that acceptance and being gentler and kinder for myself was the key, because I was pretty hard on myself that I couldn't do it, and I kept pushing, and it just wasn't happening. And the truth is I didn't have it in me.
Yeah, it's funny you had mentioned the mailbox, because I was telling, I just helped my younger brother go through colorectal cancer, and he's coming out to stage 3, and he just had his colon taken out and the whole thing, surgery at the end of it. So the icing on that cake was you go through all of the chemo and then they take your colon out. And I knew what it was like to be on heavy chemo, and I was telling him the story. I said, because I was released to my friend's house, who was a medical doctor at Cedars. So they released me to her, and I was compromised. I was wearing a mask years before wearing a mask was cool. No one can hug me. No one can come near me, and the whole thing. And so when friends came over to visit, it was like, hey, you have to be over there,
Right.
And I wasn't supposed to go outside. I was supposed to be in the hospital, but I was released to her house up in Bel Air, of all places. And every day I would stare out the window, and I stared at her mailbox, and I said, I wonder if I can walk and make it to it, because I was just when they're pumping that chemo in you, is going in that PICC line every day. I wonder if I can make it to that mailbox. And you got to understand, right before they put me on chemo, the day they got me off of my bike, because I was an ultra cyclist, right? 500 miles nonstop was nothing for me. I was on a 250-mile ride that day. They stopped me at about 160 miles and said, you need to come in right now, right? That was only weeks before. Now I'm looking at a mailbox that's about 15 or 20 steps away. I'm going to wonder if I can get all the way to that mailbox. Wonder if I can do it. And I did it. And when I got to the mailbox and I touched the mailbox, and then I had to hang on to it for dear life, like one boxer hanging on another boxer when he's getting ready.
Right.
And I said to myself, this was Mount Everest. I just climbed Everest to get to this mailbox. And then I had to turn around and get back to that front door.
Yeah.
And, the front door wasn't it. I knew when I was getting back to the front door, I had to stop a few times. And when I got back into the house, I knew I had another 6 or 7 steps to go to plop onto a couch.
Right.
Right. And I'll never forget getting back to that couch going, okay, that's the new normal. Tomorrow I got to get to that. Every day it was, I got to get to that.
Yeah.
Mailbox. I got to get to that mailbox. And that became the thing.
Yeah.
I even joked and said that became Wilson. The Tom Hanks movie when he's on the island with a ball, Wilson. That mailbox became Wilson. I had to go because there was no one there every day. It was just me left with my thoughts.
Right. I get it.
Had to get to that mailbox.
Right.
That was that. Mimi, I don't want to keep you any longer. You've been very, very generous with your time.
Uh-huh.
Where can people
Thank
find
you.
you besides Mimi K. Morgan on Twitter? Are you anywhere else?
No, I'm nowhere else. I have a small little on Instagram, but it's nothing really. So Twitter is really where I'm at.
I'm going to follow you on Instagram. What's your name on Instagram?
Oh, I have to look. I'll let you know. I don't even know.
Let
I hardly
me know.
ever go there. Hardly ever go.
Yeah, but look, I'm a
Good.
fan. And if you
Oh,
ever,
thank you.
I find you very intriguing, very motivating. And if you ever
Thank you.
want to come back on, you have an audience right here.
All right. Well, thank
Please.
you. Whenever you want me on, I'd love to. I enjoyed it.
You got it. Hang on just a
Um,
second because I want to say goodbye to you off the air. Folks,
Okay.
I'm not sure when this is coming out, but I'm going to keep collecting names at vinnietortorich.com/VIP. I'm shocked at how big that list is already. Everyone's excited about the fact that I'm going to be doing these check-ins twice a month. Even though we haven't started yet, I'm putting together a whole program. This won't just be me coming in twice a month. It's going to be twice a month for 1 hour. So it's going to be 2 hours a month. That's what I'm offering from the get-go. We're going to do other things. I'm trying to figure out how to give you guys my whole back catalog of over 2,400 shows for free. I got to figure out how to work that out with Lipson, because right now that's a yearly fee. You know, if you want to get the whole back catalog of shows, it's, $20-$30. I don't know what it is. But I'm also trying to put together other tools that's going to help you guys, along the way to losing weight and being more like Mimi. So just go to vinnietortorich.com/VIP, sign up, and we're going to start with the beta group. As I said, this might be coming out after that program starts. Just keep going there because I'm going to keep backfilling from that list. Also, before you go to Amazon, go to vinnietortorich.com, click through the banner. We're getting up on holiday time, and that's when people buy a lot of gifts on Amazon. If you go through vinnietortorich.com, it puts a little coal on the fire, gets our train down the track. Doesn't cost you anything extra, so I appreciate you guys doing that. That's about all the housekeeping we have to do right now. On behalf of Mimi K. Morgan, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.